The shepherd drives the wolf from the sheep's throat, for which the sheep thanks the shepherd as his liberator, while the wolf denounces him for the same act as the destroyer of liberty. Plainly, the sheep and the wolf are not agreed upon a definition of liberty. Abraham Lincoln. Welcome to EOS Weekly. Today, we'd like to take a close look at the ECAF and this thing we call base layer arbitration. But first, let's catch up on the news. The ecosystem currently looks like this. Telos is not yet launched, but their next go, no-go call is on November 27th. Here's a look at the current state of the Telos launch checklist. We're very excited about Telos and plan to do a special episode on the features of Telos once they go live. Lumeos did launch an initial version of their app, and it is now available on both the Apple and the Google Play Store. This is an early version of what Lumeos will be offering. Lumeos is starting out with this polling app, which is similar to iRespo, but as you can see in their roadmap here, the longer-term vision is that Lumeos will offer more of a general-purpose data management service, enabling users to have control of their data and monetize it. Very exciting stuff. Another piece of exciting news is this green initiative by EOS Authority. EOS will potentially be the first carbon-neutral blockchain ever. EOS Authority worked with some of the top leaders in the carbon credits industry to independently verify and offset the carbon emissions of the EOS mainnet. You can see on the EOS Authority website here that block producers can earn a badge by participating in this program. So far, about 40% of the BPs have signed up. Please help show your support for this initiative and encourage BPs that do not yet have this badge to work with EOS Authority to get one. This is not only a noble effort for altruistic purposes, this is great from a PR perspective as well. Great work to EOS Authority. Thank you for what you've done here. Okay, time to get into our headline story, and that is the ECAF, the EOS Core Arbitration Forum. There are a small set of scenarios that potentially require block producers to interfere with the normal, everyday workings of the blockchain code. They are theft, lost keys, and network spamming. In order to address these scenarios, we give block producers some special powers. We're calling these special powers because these are beyond the basic necessities of what BPs need to do their automated day-to-day activities, such as creating and signing blocks. So to address these three issues, we equip block producers with the ability to do things like freeze accounts, graylist and blacklist accounts, and use sudo commands to perform actions on an account holder's behalf. Now, there's a big decision that we, the EOS community, need to make regarding when we empower block producers to use these powers to address these scenarios. Right now, there are debates going on among the EOS community as to whether we should have something called base layer arbitration. This is a crucial thing for the EOS mainnet to get right. It's a foundational type of decision that, over the long run, could cause the whole structure to become unstable if we don't get this right. Now that the referendum system is in beta, we'll be voting on base layer arbitration in the coming months. It is the most important thing that we'll be voting on in the foreseeable future. Second in line being the worker proposal system. So what the heck is base layer arbitration? Basically, it's just a fancy way of asking whether arbitrators should be able to issue orders to block producers. That's it. That's all it is. Should ECAF, which is currently the default arbitrator, be able to issue orders to the block producers? As of today, we have put a lot of power and responsibility in the hands of the ECAF to make the tough calls for the community as to when block producers will wield these special powers to address these types of issues. Recently, on November 8th, the ECAF issued their first official ruling. The rest of these are precautionary orders to freeze accounts, but this one being a ruling means that the arbitrator actually came to a decision and is issuing an order that this account be placed in the hands of the claimant in this case. Many leaders in our community have spoken out against this arrangement where the ECAF issues these types of orders. There are three main concerns that members of the community have with regards to the ECAF. The first is that ECAF is unelected, but with tremendous power. Secondly, regular interference weakens immutability and confidence in the chain. And third, arbitration for the theft scenario is not ideal. What we'd like to do in the rest of this episode is explore each of these, starting with the first. As Ash Oro pointed out in this tweet, Empowering an unelected body like an ECAF to give orders to block producers introduces a single point of failure for the mainnet, or using Ash's terminology, it introduces an attack vector. He's right. We make it very expensive, practically impossible, for someone to gain control of the network through DPoS. But then we go and empower the ECAF to give orders like this, making ECAF potentially the weak link in our system. It's not that we question the ECAF's intentions at the moment. We all believe that they have noble intentions with what they are doing right now. But if we put ourselves in the shoes of the bad guys, if we were a bad guy with enough resources and a malicious desire to infiltrate the mainnet in some way, we would probably recognize the ECAF as an opportunity, a vulnerability to explore. Picture a bad guy with virtually unlimited resources like a government or a central bank, entities that are wealthy and capable of extreme violence. As EOS matures and starts to threaten the status quo, entities at this scale may legitimately attempt to compromise the EOS network. So it's not a silly idea that we need to be cautious of opponents at this level. But here's the thing. If we were to take the ECAF out of the equation, what would fill the void? How would BPs make a call as to whether it's okay or not okay to exercise their special powers? Who would fill the gap were we to remove the ECAF from this spot here? Dan Larimer suggested moving the decision-making power to the block producers, limiting ECAF's authority to the level of opinion only. At least this way, the decision-making power would be moved to the hands of elected entities, the BPs. But if the expectation is that we will provide services when things like theft, lost keys, and network spamming happen, this puts a burden on the BPs to stay informed on all the cases where the ECAF is submitting an opinion. All those opinions headed their way, the BPs are going to need to review them somehow and make sure they agree with the opinion before taking action. This is no small request. It puts a big burden on the shoulders of the BPs. But maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be interfering so much in the first place. The second concern that the community has with the ECAF is that it can lead to too much interference. Regular interference weakens immutability and confidence in the chain. How actively will human beings interfere with the everyday workings of a given EOS blockchain? In last week's episode, we covered the importance of the human beings that use the blockchain having control over the direction in which the blockchain evolves. And we get this through BP elections, referendum voting, and worker proposal voting. But giving them this type of directional control over the rules of the chain doesn't mean we want humans interfering in the day-to-day operations of the chain. When you have a blockchain that sets the code in motion and just lets the system run regardless of what happens, then you have what we might call a passive level of human interference. Ethereum, with their code is law mantra, strives to be over on the passive side like this. Of course, the DAO did show that they are not entirely passive. On the other end of the spectrum is active interference. This is the neurotic side. A blockchain in this state is where the block producers are constantly messing with things. They're freezing accounts, blacklisting, graylisting, using pseudo powers to perform actions on the account holder's behalf, and so on. If you've heard the term helicopter mom, it refers to a parent who is constantly hovering over her kids, making sure they never get hurt and nothing bad ever happens. The helicopter mom would be over here on the active side of the interference line. When the EOS mainnet launched back in June, right out of the gates, we were actively interfering with the workings of our baby blockchain. We were just like a helicopter mom. The Bytemaster recognized this, and he didn't like where the mainnet was situated on this spectrum. He thought we were too far on the right side, the active side, that we were interfering too much. That's why he wrote this blog post with a new version of the Constitution and suggested the intent of code is law idea. This was the Bytemaster's way of trying to nudge the mainnet towards the passive end of the interference spectrum. Every time the ECAF issues an order, it is mandating that the block producers use their special powers to actively interfere with the chain. In this way, the ECAF's mere existence pushes us towards the right side of the interference spectrum. Let's move on to our third reason as to why people are critical of ECAF and base layer arbitration. and that is that arbitration for the theft scenario is not ideal. The main involvement with ECAF so far has been to make rulings in the case of alleged theft, meaning they are trying to help accounts that were allegedly hacked in some way. But it is strange to use arbitration for a theft scenario like this. For the sake of discussion, let's compare two situations. One where a car was stolen, and a second where a married couple owns a car and the couple is sadly getting a divorce. They want to decide who gets the car. When a car is stolen and the victim doesn't know who stole the car, who do they go to? The victim goes to the police. The police have an enforcement side of things, an army of squad cars, and an investigation side of things, the forensic team and the detectives. And together with the insurance company, they work together to make the victim whole again. On the other side of the fence is our married couple. They agree to go to arbitration to decide who should get the car. They both agree to abide by whatever ruling the arbitrator makes. They each provide their own evidence and their own argument as to why they should be the one to get the car. The arbitrator takes all that info and makes a ruling that the wife should get the car because she paid for it and maintained it over the years. She drives off with the car. It makes perfect sense to use arbitration in the second situation with the married couple. The two voluntarily agree to use arbitration and to abide by the arbitrator's rulings. They still have the car, so the arbitrator's ruling carries some weight to it. But does it make sense to go to an arbitrator in the first situation with the stolen car? No, it doesn't. If your car was stolen and you went to an arbitrator for help, the arbitrator would look at you like you're crazy and tell you you must not understand what arbitration is all about. The arbitrator would tell you that unless you can track down the person who stole your car and get them to voluntarily agree to bring the car to arbitration, and you and the thief both agree to abide by the arbitrator's ruling, only then would it possibly make sense. And what are the chances of that happening? Trying to have ECAF cover theft, having it serve as some sort of police force and be responsible for the investigative and forensic side of things feels misguided. It feels like we're trying to force arbitration into a situation where it doesn't belong. If what we're after is an investigative type of arm of a police force to help us with theft, fine. But let's call it what it is. Let's call it forensics or whatever, and make it a world-class forensics operation. What the Bytemasters and others have suggested is that the best way to handle theft is to make it not happen in the first place. Through technical solutions such as multi-sig and an opt-in banking contract, we can empower the individual to protect themselves and take care of everything at the application level. This would help us keep the mainnet over here on the passive end of the interference spectrum, and potentially make ECAF obsolete. This completes our summary of the community's concerns with ECAF. We hope you learned something. If so, please hit the like button. And please subscribe to our channel. We'll help you stay current on EOS as this revolution unfolds. Thanks, and we'll see you next week, right here on EOS Weekly.